So you got a big block of wax. How you gonna break it up? Get a couple baggies from your local grocery store, double them up, give it a wrap, sit on the ground, BFH, done. Now you have chunks that take and fit nicely into your pot, and you can just melt all this stuff down. Hello again. Today we're going to fix a couple little problems that we got on the Fox, namely the bottom covers. Fritz sent me these two pieces of wax, and these are going to form the bottoms of the Foxes, which ultimately is going to get welded on and closed in. The only problem is the thickness of them is highly uneven. Pretty thick on one side and pretty thin on the other. Good thickness though. They say that you can actually cast bronze to about 3 millimeters. This is more like 3/8, and the other one is probably closer to maybe 5 millimeters, and that one would probably work. Unfortunately, neither one fits. But I'm going to take a moment and show you a quick way to make plate, or a quick way to make flat pieces of wax. This was actually included in one of the other videos that I did. This is going to be a separate standing video. It's quick, down and dirty. Melting some wax. You can keep the wax rolling. Melt some wax and heat up some water and pour some flat wax. Once you have wax in a flat sheet, you can cut it up, make a house, make whatever you want out of it. This first method, this one's not mine. This has been around probably since the beginning of time. You take plaster of Paris and park it in a bowl, like either a silicone pie plate or what have you. And this was originally the pattern. Now this is a piece of 1/4 inch steel. All I did with this was I took and laid it on the bottom of a pie plate and then dumped plaster of Paris over the top of it. And once it was dried, it looked like that. And of course that came out, and now you have a hard, solid plate. This method works really good if you want to do small pieces or even duplicate something complicated. There's the jewelry box pour, the legs on it were actually pieces of wood patterns I found at a Hobby Lobby or Michael's craft store or something. So this, we're going to go ahead and get soaking in some water. All the air bubbles will drop out of it, and then we'll pour the wax into it. Once the wax hardens, pop the wax out, and there you go. You now have a sheet that's this side, but in wax. The second method I'm going to show you is the hot water method, and this one was included in one of the other videos I did. We're going to take a silicone pie plate pan thingy, and we're going to fill it up with very hot water, probably water that's 180 degrees, 170 degrees, somewhere in that neighborhood. And from there we're going to take and dump hot wax onto it, let it cool. The wax will solidify, we'll pull the wax off, and you can cut it up and use it for whatever piece you want. This one is a good method for controlling the thickness of the wax. If you keep on dumping the wax in there, you can make yourself a 1/2 inch plate of wax, or you can make it very thin. So stick around, watch me try not to burn myself too badly here, and maybe we'll both learn something. If you're going to use the plaster method, one of the first things you got to do is take your plaster cast that you've made here, and you can see it starting to bubble, and you have to soak it in water. You'll know when it's finished because it'll pretty much quit bubbling. So about 10 minutes or so, give it a nice little bath, and when it comes out, we're just going to pat it dry. We don't want it bone dry, but we'll just pat it dry, and we'll take and dump the wax into it and let it harden. This water is really hot, as you can see. It's just below the boiling point, and we're going to call that's probably good enough. Set that down. Now this is actually safe to do because the wax and the water temperature are pretty close together. And with that, you just take and pour your wax on top. You can see the wax takes and starts to float. Once it hits the side, that's usually a good time to stop pouring. once it hits the side, you have to kind of make the decision, should you keep pouring or not, and this is a little trial and error, and this is how you control the thickness of the final wax piece. So I'm going to add a little bit more. And we're going to call that one done. I'm going to try that, see what we get. There is a gentleman on YouTube. He goes by the name of Zappins, and he showed me this little trick, and it works good. I'm going to take our wax and just kind of, my workbench isn't really level, but and just kind of fill up your mold. That's good. Put it on a towel here as I kind of shift the height a little. Right. Now you end up with a couple tiny little bubbles on top. You just take and hit it with a flame and out they go. And that works really good. Get you a real nice finish on your wax, and it will harden and look pretty much like that. So at least now you've got a wax sheet that you can make more or make larger ones, or stick them all together, or stitch them together, and that's it. Pretty simple. Now you see the color of this has changed. It's much darker now. I got a couple of air bubbles in it. Not to worry, I didn't really do the best job with this plaster mold. I really need to throw it away and make another one. But now that it's sat here for a few minutes, you can pop it out, and now you have a sheet of wax, and you can use it. See, a couple little tiny little air bubbles came up through the bottom of this, and that's how you get a sheet of wax of a nice consistent thickness, right about 1/4 inch. And it's one method. I prefer the water method. This works good though, but I still like the water method. Alright, I cheated a little bit. I threw some ice water on it. Let's go ahead and, it's still, water below is still really hot. Let's see what happens when we pull it out and give it a flip. There we go. Not too bad. Not too shabby. A little thicker than I really wanted. And there we go. We have a solid piece of, and this is a little on the thick side, but I'm okay with it being a little thick. I'll just make the piece a little heavier. And cool it down. Cut that out. Build something out of it. Cut it into strips if you need strips or corners or pieces or flat or whatever you want. Yeah, so I would say maybe if I did it again, I would maybe not quite pour so much wax in there like I did on this one, but yeah, that's a flat piece of wax. Let's get it nice and cool. It'll turn that real dark brown, and we'll be ready to do it again.